In the 1930s and 40s, Havana was a social paradise for Americans. Nightclubs, casinos, beautiful beaches. But all that changed when Fidel Castro overthrew the government in 1959 and installed a hard-line communist regime. Today, isolated and shunned by most of the world, Castro's Cuba teeters on collapse. Ironically, one of the few professions to prosper in Havana is that of prostitution.
I remember since I was 13, 14 years old, the way that the prostitutes work in Cuba. They have houses in whole street, in 2 or 3 neighborhoods. It was a traditional way in Cuba.
Having recently defected, Tico has seen a change in Cuba's prostitution over the past 30 years.
Cuban women are beautiful, are very sensual, very romantic. This is the woman that I remember in Cuba. Right now, there's another way to prostitution. La jinetera is the new product of the revolution. The jineteras are maybe a doctor and an architect by day, and by night, especially by night after 6 p.m., start to make another kind of life. With dollars, you get power in Cuba to get clothes, get things that you cannot receive from the government with your Cuban pesos. They start a new era of prostitution in Cuba. The woman who works start like professional by day and by night becomes in prostitutes.
A prostitute in the United States, especially a street prostitute, they are normally hooked on drugs, cocaine being number one, or perhaps even marijuana, where a prostitute in Cuba is a prostitute because of the economic structure in Cuba. For example, a doctor in Cuba will make $50 to $100 in a month, where a successful prostitute can make up to $300 in one night.
Images of Cuba are difficult for foreign journalists to capture. A producer went underground in Havana to record interviews with 4 Cuban prostitutes. This girl is only 17. Her family is trying to make repairs on their house. She has turned to prostitution to help pay for the renovation.
My father makes a salary in national currency, which is not good enough. It's not worth much. There is no food. I have to accept whatever I can get, sometimes only $40.
Carmen is a 30-year-old widow and mother of 3. She's been a prostitute for 10 years.
My family doesn't really know what I do. Sometimes they are suspicious. Due to the economic situation, I have to work as a prostitute. It's the fastest way of getting money into the house and helping the house economy. This is the way of life. I have sex with tourists from all over the world. You either go to the hotel or go to the discotheques to dance, or you just go out at night and walk the streets. Sometimes I sit in the lobby of a hotel. Somebody will come up and ask me how much for the night.
21-year-old Elena works the nightclubs and along the Malecon, the famous seawall in Havana.
Sometimes I walk along the Malecon, and someone whistles at me to come over, and I start a conversation. They pay me for sex. No big deal. I know it's the wrong attitude in life, but it's the only way out.
Cici is Elena's older sister. She was a nurse before becoming a prostitute. She lives with her grandmothers, who have no idea what she does.
You know, I'm not an ugly girl. I told them that I have a boyfriend who works in a hotel. If I come home with gifts, I tell my grandmothers that it's from my boyfriend.
What will you be doing in 10 years?
Me? The same.
Will you always be a prostitute?
I wouldn't want to.
Is it morally difficult for you?
A lot.